Welcome to tonight's Zoom. You picked a great night. We only have 2 Zooms left in this semester, and I just want to maximize them. I want to make the most of this time because I want what we've learned so far. And then what we're going to learn over the next, tonight and next week. I just want it to launch us into summer. Now, we may have some time in the summer. We may do a 2 or 3, 4 week stretch in the summer. We'll kind of see how that goes. I'll keep you posted. But I want what we've learned, what's been covered. I want it to cause us to grow, not just be, oh yeah, I remember taking notes on that, but really digging into what we've learned. Let it cause us to grow. Let it cause us to improve. This isn't just about ministry, but let it make us better bosses or better employees, better spouses, better neighbors, better leaders, for like in our situation, like our kids' sports teams. I know Rip and Debbie, you're still in that world when you get around your grandkids' sports teams and things like that. And so we have opportunities to use these things, the disciplines and the dreams and the visions and all of that. And just to see us unleashed. You hear me say that term all the time. I just want us unleashed in a greater way than ever before. And I'm praying that by the time we get back together, assuming we don't get together in the summertime, that by the time the fall hits, we're much more prepared to go even deeper in our leadership. We're much more prepared where the people on this call, they're serving. They have places within the church that they can lead people and where people will follow. And so I want to jump into where we're headed tonight. One of the most important ways that we can lead well, not just lead, but lead well, is by learning to live full. It's vital that we live full. We have to have our emotional, spiritual, and even mental takes full so that we, don't run out of gas, if you will, if that makes sense. And so I've invited Donna on here to just come and share some of the things that's helped her grow as a believer and now even as a leader. And I'm sure if you've known Donna, you've seen quite the transformation over the last year or so. And so I wanted to use Zoom as an opportunity to have multiple voices. And so Donna, I'm going to unmute you, and I just want you to share your word. Have at it.
All right. Hi. So, I had to put my, hold on. So, tonight, I had been asked to share on connectedness and getting connected and what that means to me and what that looks like, at least, on my level and beyond that. So, but before I wanted to talk about connectedness, I thought that it was really important to talk about separation, because I know on a real personal level how incredibly dangerous separation from others is, that it's, not just that it can be, but it really is a separation. And how that it's dangerous. It's dangerous for our minds, it's dangerous for our hearts, and it's dangerous for our spirits. So the separation I'm talking about is not like a separation or me time, my alone time, my time in the bathtub, and or taking a walk, collecting your thoughts, or even the time that you're talking to God, the time that you're praying and just enjoying His company. That sort of separation is healthy and can make you stronger. The separation I'm talking about is like an isolation, like being cut from the herd. And so sometimes that isolation can be a physical thing, like a distance from other people's, literally distance. But more detrimentally, separation is a state of mind. And it's a mental or kind of a thought thing. And so it could look anything like I don't deserve to be around people, that I'm not worthy of being around other people, that I'm a nuisance or a bother or an annoyance, or that you're just too mentally drained to deal with people and you just don't want to be around them. So in that situation, we've all heard that saying, you can be in a room with all kinds of people and still be alone and separated from them. So, and it also came to me, the thought came to me about when Pastor Doug used a message from Eye on Eternity, and how hell is the separation from God. And and so I think that a separation from people who can speak life into you and hope and joy and all of that is kind of the definition of hell on earth. You're not getting all of that God can provide to you through other people. So personally, I have been about 55 years shy, shy of 55 years, I guess I should say, about having a true sense of connection with people. And so I'm having to learn the skill of connecting. And it's a challenge, but I can honestly say that Legacy is the first real connection that I've experienced. And Freedom, of course, was instrumental in that for me. It was an education of connectedness for me. In that time period around my first Freedom, especially about a year ago, was when I first started breaking down around other people and then trusting others to help build me back up even bigger and even stronger. And of course, Kim, Jason, Jen, and Mary were all instrumental in that building up. But everyone, truly everyone in that whole Freedom group played an important role in jump-starting my continuing transformation. So, and I won't lie, I had to force myself to believe them and to trust them. But staying connected with that group, even through some really stinking painful moments, I began to view myself differently. I started to see that perhaps I did have value and that I had something to offer. So it's through connectedness that I am continuing to be comfortable with who God made me to be and who I am in Him. I have become comfortable enough, actually, that I talk daily with either coworkers, friends outside of church, my kids, or even strangers about God, about Jesus, about their stuff and things. I can confidently offer perspective shifts for them. I encourage them, and I comfort them. And a lot of times I now have the confidence just to shoot straight with them, to be raw and real and relevant without being ashamed of who I am in doing that. And I can certainly say that I would not be where I am right now, of course, except for God's grace and the love and connectedness of my people, of the church. And I was listening, I've been listening to C.S. Lewis on an audiobook, and he said in Mere Christianity, and he says, God works on us through each other. Men are mirrors or carriers of Christ to other men, and this is a good infection. And I just thought that was so relevant for tonight and so powerful of a statement when you really, really think about it. So I believe that staying connected will take me further. I believe that we all need to stay connected so that we can take each other further. And that as we continue to stay connected to each other and others outside of this call and outside of the church even, that God will work through us to be carriers of Christ to others. There is not a greater gift that we can give other people than to stay connected to them, checking on them, caring about them, and loving on them. And so it is truly a life-saving and a life-altering experience to stay connected. So that's all I got to say. It's just that important.
That is awesome. There were some zingers, and I was just thinking just a minute ago, I was like, okay, before the next Connection Sunday, I want to see some of those words, some of those statements you made, because those are phenomenal. Very well done. Very well done. Even some stuff for our You Asked For It series. We planned it all out this day, and there's some things for a particular Sunday. I believe Pastor Abram's going to be speaking on that, and you shared some things about even, drawing away and those times and the power of pulling away, because God will allow us to do that. But I just want to reiterate some of what Donna said, that you can't overestimate how important it is to have a good network of people who will just help you along on the journey. She's obviously reaped the benefit of that kind of connectivity, of that kind of connection. She mentioned, her life group, and that's just opened her up to all sorts of growth, all sorts of depth. And girls, audiobooking C.S. Lewis. She's devouring Carolyn Leaf and on and on and on. She wouldn't have been doing that if it weren't for, being connected. Obviously, having an encounter with Jesus, first and foremost, but that led to great growth. And so we're about to take things up a notch here on Legacy Zoom. Up to this point, things have been pretty chill when it kind of comes to follow through and follow up, doing the action steps, not just hearing about them, not just writing them down, but actually doing. Tonight is where I believe there's going to be a separation from the leaders and the hearers. And so are you ready to take the next step in your leadership? You want to be a leader, not just a hearer. If that's you, put a 1 in the chat. We got to do some chat work real fast, and then I'm going to jump into just a great leadership lesson. Y'all know I've done quite a few habitudes, these leadership lessons over the last couple of semesters, but this one was so good that I just wanted to share. It wasn't where I was planning on going, as a matter of fact, but I was like, I want to check that out, and it's perfect. And Donna really honestly set us up wonderfully tonight. It's called Emotional Fuel. And so there's not a huge lesson, but there's a whole lot of to do afterwards. Not necessarily it's going to take a long time, but plenty of our time is going to be wrapped up in that aspect of it. The author is Tim Elmore. He said, over the years, I've been guilty of driving my car on empty. I try to eke out the last drop of gasoline before stopping at a gas station to refuel. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I think it's better stewardship of my time to wait until it's totally drained. Whatever the reason, I've learned in time the dangers of driving on empty. One Sunday morning, my wife and I were driving to church, and the tank was on empty again. She warned me that we should stop and get gas, but I refused. I was sure we had enough gas to get to church and back home again. I'd done it 100 times before. I could do it again. Well, you probably know the rest of the story. We ran out of gas. Or should I say I ran out of gas. My wife did not want to be associated with that failure. I had to push the car quite a ways to get to the nearest exit and fill the tank. She was smiling when it was all over. I was not. Cars don't just run well without fuel. In fact, they don't run at all. If you continue to force a car to operate without fuel or oil or transmission fluid and on, you're going to run into problems. We all know that. That's a no-brainer. Automobiles need liquids to run. I forgot to do the screen share. Give me just a second. Come on. In the same way, leaders run on fuel. We need spiritual fuel. We need emotional fuel. And I believe we even need mental fuel because leaders spend themselves more than the average person. They need to refuel more often than most other people do. And so in this habitude, I want to talk about the emotional fuel that leaders require. A leader's personal network is his or her emotional fuel. We just heard that from Donna, right? A leader's personal network is his or her emotional fuel. Leaders need people in their lives who don't just take from them, but who replenish them. If they don't have this network of people in place, they will use their followers to meet their needs. And that almost always leads to unhealthy situations. For instance, some people lead because they're needy. Their emotional tank is empty and they need people to fill them up. Obviously, we all need others in our lives for social reasons, but I'm talking about an unhealthy leader who uses people to meet his or her need for flattery, prestige, or ego fulfillment. Perhaps the leader's self-image rides on whether or not people like him or her. It's not good. Some people lead because they're lonely. Some people lead because they need encouragement. If you need people for this, you can't lead them well. Your perspective is going to be skewed by your own needs rather than what's best for your organization or for your team. Leaders must make sure their emotional tank is full before they lead others. And that's on us. That's our responsibility. Never lead out of need. It says, when I was in college, I worked for a man who led from an empty tank. In fact, he confided to me that he was intimidated by the people and the board members in his organization. I was stunned to hear this because this leader seemed so together. He confessed to me that he had a poor self-image and wasn't secure or confident in his decisions. He had no accountability and no mentors. The result? During the next 4 years, the organization fell apart. It unraveled in front of my eyes, not because we didn't have sufficient funds or a good strategy. It was because the leader was running on an empty tank. He became consumed by his own needs instead of looking out for the needs of the organization. People began arguing over the direction and the vision and who was in charge. The team was divided, and the leader was eventually asked by the board chairman to leave. What a mess. And it's because his tank was empty. All of that happened. It wasn't a strategy thing. It wasn't even really a vision thing. It was a leader issue, a leader who was running on empty. Listen to these couple statements. It's been said that your network determines your net worth. Your network determines your net worth. I see a lot of y'all writing, so I'll wait for just a second because he adds to that. Your network determines your net worth. In other words, your value to any team or organization depends on how strong and how healthy you are inside. And my goodness, I've seen that in my own personal life over and over and over again. You know, I remember one of the first conversations I had with Kim once, Annette and I were able to move out here. It's like we had an unbelievable youth ministry, man, with 15 years of just phenomenal ministry and impact and legacy and all of that. And I remember thinking, if we could see that happen and we were that broken and that hurting and that much of a mess and coming out of that much dysfunction, what's it going to be like when we're whole? What's it going to be like when we're free? See, and I believe both of our value has dramatically increased. I believe if we could go back into youth ministry, you know, back there as we are now, I believe the number of people we'd reach would at least double, if not more. I believe the effectiveness of our ministry would increase as well. Get back to this. You need to run on all 8 cylinders, and your strength depends on your running on a full emotional tank. Our character and our relationships are closely linked. Listen to this. Our character and our relationships are closely linked. Whenever there's a problem with our character, we pay a price in our relationships. Whenever we have a relationship problem, it affects our character. I believe we've all seen that. And so I've uploaded a file onto the Legacy Zoom Facebook page. If you go over to the side of the Facebook page, you'll see things and you'll see files. If you click on that, you can download it. And so one of your first action steps is to download it and take a few minutes to fill out this download. What it is, it's let me see if I can get it. It looks like this. And if for some reason you can't, you'll be able to see it. But what it is, it's your network. You know, it's various people filling various roles in your network. And so it has models. I'm going to go ahead and read it. There's people that are models in your life. And you want to fill out who in your world, you know, would fit into this particular category. Your models are people who do what you'd like to do. Your mentors are people who coach and invest into you. There's the inner circle, those who are closest to you. You know, they're the ones that are like family. Like Jesus had the 12 disciples, but he had Peter, James, and John. That was his inner circle. Mentees are the people who learn from you. Those are your Joshuas. Your mentors are your Moseses. Your mentees are your Joshuas. Partners, those are peers who travel with you and hold you accountable. Either or. I don't know how many of us have a big traveling type of work, or ministry or whatever. Your heroes. These are the people you look up to and admire. And so it kind of looks like that. But you want to be able to fill out, take a couple minutes and fill that out. You may have some people, that are in more than one category. But if you don't have people for each category, think about why that's the case. Is it because you've been resistant, or is it because you've never even thought about it? Because the reality is, for some of us, we've never even thought about it. We've never thought about who's a hero to us, or who even is a Joshua to us, a mentee. And so as you're thinking about it, and we're really into the action step part, is do you have a good balance of relationships that can help your emotional fuel? And then out of these, which of the categories, I'm trying to get it there, which of the categories do you still need people to fill? And so what I'm going to want you to do, especially where you're lacking, is write down the names of some potential people who can be a part of your network. Maybe you've never thought about it. And here's the reality too. Right now, there might not be sufficient people for every area. That's reality. So it's not like, oh, I got to find somebody. Well, maybe not necessarily, because at right times, God brings certain people into your life. But we want to get very intentional about filling those things so that we can grow and develop as leaders. And so write down the names of some people, then take a step out and connect with those people and invite them to play a bigger role in your life in a way that you specify. Hey, I'd like for you to be in my inner circle, and explain to them what that means. Or, hey, I'd like for you to be a mentor, or I consider you a hero of mine, or, whatever it may be. You're a model. You are where I want to be someday. And I just want to invite you to play a bigger role in my life, and then set some time aside to connect with them. Maybe once a month, to just have some time for support, for accountability, for encouragement, for direction, and for prayer. Set these times aside, and then invite them to ask these questions of you. And again, it doesn't have to be all these questions every time. And I'll make sure I put this up on the Legacy Zoom Facebook page. But what are the goals? You want to invite them and ask you to be point blank, because some of these can be uncomfortable. But what are the goals you're working towards right now? Well, I want to fill this. I want to be able to, be a dream team leader in the church. Or, I'm working towards getting out of debt, and so I'm getting in, to a Dave Ramsey course, or something like that. And then you want them to ask you, how can I offer you direction? You don't always want the people to always have to think of everything. You want to be able to put in the legwork. Hey, this is what I think I need from you. And they might have some other ways and some other ideas, but it's our responsibility to do the legwork. And so you want them to ask you, in what ways can I hold you accountable? I'm not going to chase you. I'm not going to necessarily run after you, but I am going to be wide open to you. You can share anything, and I'm not going to make you pay. I'm just saying, if I was in that situation, accountability is not, let's say, Rip, he wants Pastor Doug to hold him accountable. It's not me calling him all the time. As a matter of fact, it goes the exact opposite. He's coming to me and he's sharing some things, but he also knows I'm not going to make him pay, for when he messes up. That doesn't mean if he's in a leadership position, we don't pull him out for a season of restoration and healing and health and freedom. But we're not going to kick him to the curb, because I do not believe in kicking people while they're down. Maybe, a lot of us have seen that in the church world. It will not happen at Legacy Church. No way, no how. What are your greatest needs? What do you need in order to see this dream fulfilled or whatever? What are the temptations? What are the weaknesses that are getting to you? And so, and then finally, what action steps can you take this week? And then when are you going to take them? That's part of the follow-up aspect of this whole thing. What action steps can you take? We give you action steps. Now, When are you going to take them? When are you going to do it? Let's put your money where your mouth is. And so, come on, somebody. Here we go. Come on, help me. There we go. Ta-da. It wasn't letting me do anything. There we go. And so go through those things, because this can be huge for us. Can you imagine? And I know there's only about 10 of us or so, 11 of us on this call tonight. I totally get it. We have a light night. But can you imagine? I always think, can you imagine what would happen if 11 of us, man, we had those kinds of networks? You know, your value is going to be in, what was it? Your network determines your net worth. Can you imagine if we raise the water level in our lives? We raise our net worth by raising our network, by having some accountability in ways we haven't, by developing new relationships, by making ourselves uncomfortable and being willing to be stretched in areas. Because I know, if you're like me, I like things comfortable. I like things thus and so. And so it can be difficult to expand networks. It can be difficult to be vulnerable in that area. But can you imagine if just the 10 or 11 of us raise the water level and our leadership and our emotional health and our spiritual health and our leadership ability expanded by the time we got back on here in September? You know, or even, you know, maybe sometime in June, July, we do, you know, a 3 or 4 week sort of a deal. Can you imagine? And so this is the homework, is filling this out and then finding some people who can help fill those roles for you. It's really simple, but we have to know we can't run on empty. Matter of fact, I'll share the story. Actually, I'm going to use part of this on Sunday for our Exhale series. Annette and I have a great story about tempting fate when it comes to running on empty. We had that experience here real recently. And so let's make ourselves uncomfortable. Let's invite some people into our lives, not just above us. Let's invite some mentees. Again, we need some Joshuas to pour our lives into, or else we're just hearing this stuff. But if we're not pouring it out, we're the Dead Sea, right? All intake, no outflow. It's death. And so we need to be intentional about finding some people. And you may think, man, I'm not there yet. I'm not up there yet. You don't have to be up anywhere. Somebody's following you. Somebody's looking to you. No matter where you're at in your stage of life, in your depth of relationship with Christ, or whatever, everybody on this call, has people that are following you, that look up to you, that want more of you. And so it's just finding those people and giving yourself to that. Amen. I'm going to stop there. Let's fill our emotional tanks. Let's fill our relational tanks. Donna was a great example of that tonight, of what that's done for her, how her network increased her net worth.